Pop in, say hi. If you haven't come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like a hermit, right? In doing little projects around the house, having every intention of getting outside and getting some fresh air. And I shouldn't beat myself up about not being outside as much as I would like to. I have been managing to get these small 10, 15-minute walks in, getting outside, out onto the patio, out onto the rooftop, and working on the metal garden table, getting things ready a little bit for people to start getting out there and actually doing some gardening. Usually it's already happening. This year, it has been a little bit haywire when it comes to the temperature. One day it's like summer, the next day it's like it's like winter again. It has been a little bit wonky. Eugene, oh my goodness, you're the first one in tonight. Is that the first time you've been in first on a Sunday night? Usually it is Owen. And speak of the angel, here he is. Owen's usually here first, and you beat him, Eugene. No Cupid doll, but yeah. Bragging rights, I would say, for tonight. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. I really appreciate that you guys remember to give me the thumbs up when you come in live, because I know once we're in the conversation, it's so easy to forget these things. For myself, you know, I don't look at it as a target to get those thumbs up, but I know I should be recognizing it. I should be, right, letting people know not to forget that it does work with the algorithm, right? That it does help. I know you do, you Owen, and I know you do, Eugene, all the time, and it is much appreciated. And I don't even ask. You guys know I'm not big on asking for much, that I float around. And it's not that I don't recognize the kindnesses. I really do recognize the kindnesses. But it is in my upbringing, that I was brought up not to be much of a asker in what I need and what I want. And I'm not sure if it's a good trait or a bad trait. There are benefits for not being an asker because you learn to be creative, right? In what you need and how to go about getting what you need. It builds up resilience and independence in not being that person to ask for things. Hello, oh Andrew. Hello, Andrew. I was just saying Eugene made it in first tonight. I think that was the first time on a Sunday night that Eugene actually made it in first. I say it, it's usually Owen and then Andrew, not too far behind. It has been, I don't know about you guys, it has been a little bit of a cautious week, like feeling like something's up, but not knowing exactly what, and then expecting the worst, and then things kind of working out okay, right? Better than expected in the moment. I finally signed my new lease for this year. I usually sign my lease in December, but the building manager is taking care of a couple of buildings and she just hasn't managed to get to it. And it did kind of worry me a little bit that maybe my rent would go up this year. And it did go up, but not by very much. It only went up by like $20. But I did sign my lease and I thought, oh my goodness, now I've got to pay an extra $20 in my rent and I'm kind of boo hooing about it. And then today I'm doing a little bit of chores and things around the house and I actually thought about it and I went, oh my goodness, I signed my lease today. And now it means that I won't be signing my next lease until spring of next year rather than right in November or December this year, which gives me, you guys, and I never even thought of it because my pension actually kicks in November. That means I have November, December, January, February, March, April, May, 7 months of full pension without my rent going up. It's kind of like a bonus gift. And I was kind of thinking to myself, well, I've been living on my little, right, the little CPP, the little beginning pension, um, since, well, all year I've been living on that little pension. And I'm not going to say it was easy. It was actually quite difficult, but with a little bit of help, right? A little bit from the government with the little bonuses that they give to help us to offset the different taxes, to offset the cost of groceries that's been coming in. And so I've been using that to pay my house bills, my phone and my internet, and it's been working out quite well. And then the little bit left over from my small pension has been buying the groceries. And I've been, man, nothing, no money for extras, right? No money to go to the movies or do events or anything like that. But I'm quite happy to entertain myself and not only entertain myself, but being able to delve deep into some of my favorite topics out there and actually introduce new topics into my life and to be able to do it without that added stress of how am I going to get by month to month, recognizing that in this moment everything is okay, right? It could always be better, but I tell you, it could be a whole lot worse too. So I'm going to have to send out a few gratefuls that, that the building manager actually had two buildings and it actually put her a little bit behind in the work that she had to get done here. That in the past few months, I didn't have to pay that extra $20 a month, which isn't very much. But at the same token, knowing that I'm going to have all those extra months this year to rack away some money. And I shouldn't be setting a goal like this for next year. But in thinking about it, in the few things that I had to get done today, I went, you know what? With all the extra deductions for actually being senior, because, the seniors are taken care of when it comes to different tax benefits and stuff, that I think I might be able to manage to buy my own vehicle next year, right? With the benefit deductions. And if I can manage on the little pension right now, I can imagine on my full pension. There's no reason why I can't put a couple of $100 away every single month. So I'm being brave in my high projections for next year. But I'm going to set this goal now, not in September, the end of September, beginning October, when my fiscal year ends. I'm going to set that goal right now. That next spring, I am going to have a new vehicle. Maybe not a new vehicle, probably not a new vehicle, But I'm confident that I can manage that. That's as long as I don't break my glasses and have to dish out that money for glasses. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Here in Bloomington, because there's so much of the population of college students, many leases are August to August, even if you aren't a student. Oh, isn't that interesting? August to August. It makes the kids have to pretty much stay in Bloomington, doesn't it? Through the summer, because you're not going to waste paying the rent for those summer months and then, have to re sign a lease in September. I'm going to assume, well, re sign your lease in August. And actually, you wouldn't be signing it in August. You would probably be signing the lease probably in July, I would think, or June to sign your lease for the next year. That's interesting. So you're on an August and August lease signing too. Yeah, here in at least the province that I live in, you sign your lease 2 months before your new lease starts, right? So my lease usually starts in January, and I usually have to sign it in November or December. They usually give me the paperwork in November, and they give me till September to sign the lease. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the apartment that I have. It has allowed me to manage on my own, to not have to ask for help, right? It also has allowed me to really apply myself in what I want to do. This week, I started two things. I started my website, which is, I'm not technically inclined, but with the programs, they make it pretty easy for you. So it's basically putting your time and your knowledge and your creative ideas into how you want to set it up. So I started working on my website. I make sure I because if there's anything that's going to take me down, it's going to be the technology. It's going to be the actual applications. And it's not because I don't, well, maybe it's a little bit because I don't think that I am capable as somebody who's like in their 20s or 30s that have had a little bit of a head start. But, because I am a YouTube creator, because I do work online, because my computers and laptops have crashed on me so many times that in my experimentation, I have been able to manage to be somewhat knowledgeable in this age of AI learning. That I have learned a little bit along the way. Most of it is in pushing those buttons. It has been in the research, but I think, because of my brand is based on communication. And then I go spurty when it comes to actually having to edit video. I will be producing a little bit more in the editing, I think, just so that I could free up that time in connecting with Mother Nature. But because a lot of the video that I will be putting together, I will be in parks and sitting along rivers and going for trail walks and stuff. If I can manage to borrow my sister's car, one of my sister's cars, that I'll be able to do short excursions. And who's to say, I'm planning on maybe picking up a couple of shifts uh, to work towards that trip that I'm taking in September. Um, everything is just kind of up in the air, and that's what I'm not happy with, is the uncertainty of things. It's something that uncertainty has always been in my life to some extent, but I like to have the heads up what I'm up against, and that's why I'm such a point list and detail list kind of person, that even though the funds aren't put together for my trips this September, I have been working on it. I have to readjust it because it looks like, I don't know if it's the same as what goes on here in Manitoba, where everybody gobbles up and books all their camping spots, and then as their plans get a little bit more detailed during the course of the summer, that they start, canceling their camp spots and stuff. But one of my parks, which I think I have pretty much based this entire trip, because I wanted to go to this one specific park. It's close to Sudbury, Ontario. So, because Sudbury is really right deep into Ontario, like southern part of Ontario, that I thought that, it would have to be a longer trip that I take this year. But all the camping spots are booked for even the month that I want to be camping in this spot. And usually I have no difficulties at all in booking whatever park that I want in September, unless it's already shut down for the season. And some of the parks do, especially the northern parks, they do shut down in the mid September. So I planned on leaving a little bit earlier this year and then extending the trip a little bit longer, because I learned my lessons, right? I did 12 provincial parks in 13 days, and it almost took me out, and I missed a lot in those parks. That a lot of those parks I didn't get to walk the trails. I did manage to have beautiful camping spots where most of them were lakeside, and they were beautiful, and I still managed to get my content, but not to the extent where I was really showing off these parks. So I learned my lesson last year. I only did 4 provincial parks on my tour last year, but I spent 2 days in each one of those parks, and it worked out quite well, even though my tent died on me. Right, I usually buy these extravagant luxury SUVs for my trips, but it worked out well because I didn't have the funds, and my sister was going to Disneyland, so she offered up her vehicle for half the cost of what it would normally cost me to rent a vehicle. So I decided to take my pop up tent with me just because she had a small vehicle. But then in my first provincial park, I had a hard time getting the tent up. And then I made sure when I took the tent down that I took it down so it would be really easy to set up again. But when I got to the next provincial park, I couldn't get it up. Oh my goodness. That was so, it wasn't infuriating because I accepted the circumstance that I was in. And having that knowledge that I push up against what pushed me, I was determined, as long as I didn't give up, I was going to manage to overcome and get that tent up. And I think in the end, it was a little bit of a miracle, because that first night in the second park, you guys watched those provincial park tours. That second park, which was Silver Falls, I was the only one in that park. I was the only one. I was the only one in most of the parks that I I booked, right? September is not a busy month for camping. I don't know why, because it's so beautiful. The colors and everything are so beautiful. But that night, it was the most incredible lightning and thunderstorm show that I have ever experienced. And I've experienced some pretty cool thunderstorms, and but this storm, it was crazy town. So maybe it was whoever or whatever watching over me and saying, "Okay, I think I want Cindy in the vehicle tonight." And I was just being stubborn at being determined to get that tent up. In the end, I didn't get that tent up. I did give up, but I had to get all my gear out of the vehicle so that I could fit in it. And I tarped it. I thought I tarped it really, really well. Uh, but yeah, that storm was pretty wicked. I had the saving grace was that I had it everything on a little slanty area so that when the water hit it, the water drained down and pooled into the driveway, and the wind just blew my tarping right off, so everything got soaked. I even had my new clothing bag that I use. I like to use these great big quilt bags for all my clothes so that I can see them. But this time I had gotten a Rubbermaid Gore-Tex bag with a clear window, and I thought, oh well, this will make the best cloak because I always take so many clothing with me, right? And because I was gone for a couple of weeks, that I knew that I would have a laundry day to do, so I took whatever clothes that I wanted to take, not knowing what the weather was going to be like. And I was fabergla- faberglasted that my clothes withheld in that bag through a storm, and everything was dry. Like everything was dry. It was an absolute miracle because it sat out in a thunderstorm, and I think it rained for a couple of days in that thunderstorm. Like the thunderstorm happened during the course of the night, but it rained for the next couple of days I was there. But it was beautiful. I didn't mind the rain at all. And I went into the forest because all my campsites, even though they were lakeside for the most part, they all had their own little forest. And once you go into the forest, it's canopied, right? So you're not getting terribly rained on, right? It just maybe might be a little bit damp in there, might be spitting on you a little bit, but it just worked out for me very, very, very well, right? It took a couple of days to get used to sleeping in there. I know the first couple of days I was really, really sore. But after that, I was perfectly content and I was comfortable in my setup. And yeah, I was really grateful to my sister for letting me to use that car. And she used the money that I gave her. I gave her like $600 to let me have the car for, I think, about a week and a half, 10 days, I think I was away. That I gave her $600 for letting me use the vehicle. And then it only cost me, because it's a little vehicle, it don't cost me less than $200 for the gas for the entire trip. Like that vehicle was so easy on the gas. But I was going to say, she used that money to do a repair on her car. She had an engine light go on. She didn't know what the problem was. The vehicle didn't seem to be causing her any problems. But it turned out that when she took it in to get it checked, that it was a serious problem. So she got that vehicle fixed right before, like the day before I left for my trip, and she left for Disneyland. She got that vehicle fixed. So it was just full of miracles. My trips are so full of beautiful miracles. They really are. Lots of frustrations, but like I said, if I push up what's pushing against me, things always open up for me, right? Things always open up for me, and it was an amazing experience. That trip last year turned out to be the best of all the trips of whatever year that I did on my Ontario Park tour. It was the best one. I enjoyed it more than any other one. And I kind of got a little bit exuberant this year and said that I was going to take I was going to do 3 weeks. And that would have been very expensive in the car rental and very expensive in the camping sites. And but I said I was going to do it. And then I destroyed my glasses and I realized I had to buy new glasses. I actually had this conversation with my sister. She got some good news this week too. I don't know if I told you guys. My sister has diabetes and she's been having to get fluids drained behind her eyes. They took her driver's license away from her, didn't want her on the road because of her eyesight. And it's really been debilitating for her. It's made her really, really sad. She hasn't been able to go out and about without the assistance of her friends and my brother-in-law Ian, who's an absolute sweetheart. But she's been finding it very, very hard, and I get it, right? Like I lost my vehicle, and it was like being cut off at the knees. It was very hard, but I didn't have a choice but to accept the situation. I told her the same thing. You got no choice but to accept the situation that you're in. But you can make the process go faster. You can push up with what's pushing against you, and you can work towards getting your license back, right? Get that draining. I know it's fun. I couldn't imagine having a needle put behind my eye to drain the fluids. She says it doesn't hurt or anything, right? But just the thought of it. But she's been having these things. I think this was the third one that she had, and the doctor signed off and said he's good. Everything is going good. She's got to get 3 signatures. She's got to get um, the specialist for this condition for diabetes to sign off of it. Then she's got to get the optometrist who prescribes the glasses. And the good news was that she got her prescription. And not only did she get her prescription, she got a pair of glasses and a pair of bifocal sunglasses for $300. I says, "Oh my goodness, Tracy, I pay almost $1,000 for my glasses." It put me really behind on my goal list, right? And or checking off the things on my goal list. I says because it wasn't on originally the goal list to get a new pair of glasses because I just bought a new pair of glasses, but I ruined them. I ruined the reflective coating on my glasses, and it was just driving me crazy, especially in my live shows. It was just driving me crazy. So she got some good news. She went into the optometrist. While she went to the specialist, he did the last drain, inspected her glasses. She memorized the board while she was waiting for him. He passed her. He signed off on his sheet. Then she went to the optometrist, ordered her glasses, but because she's got to get one more draining, he wouldn't sign off on the optometrist sheet. But she's going to do it, and then her family doctor has to sign off, and that will be at the end of May when she gets her last draining on her eyes. And then she's going to get her license, and she's doing it because she has to, right? She has to. If she wants her driver's license back, she has to. And of course, your eyesight is at stake too. She'll be able to read novels and watch TV, answer her texts. Oh, she's a hard one to get through to. You text her, she'll like message you back like 2 weeks later, right? Right? She says she can't read, but you got a magnifier. She can put that effort in, especially when she's all tied up at home with nothing to do anyway, right? But I don't say anything to her. Just whatever, right? Right? Just get your driver's license back, and that will bring some happiness to her life, right? And that's what we all need, right? We all need to be responsible at bringing a little bit of joy to our life, and that's hard sometimes when life is kind of beating you up the side the head, right? Like it's really pushing back at you, but you smile through it, right? Even having my trip planned and then losing the one part that I had based my whole trip on because it was so far away that I wanted to make sure. But I rearranged it, right? I rearranged it, and I do believe I'll still be. I'm going to leave it open because in September so many parks have camping spots available. I'm just gonna, right, knock on wood that I'm going to get a nice camping spot in that park. I won't get the camping spot that I want, guaranteed, because somebody made a video on YouTube about the best camping spot in this park, and I saw it, and I they gave a video tour, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I need this spot. I need this camping spot." And yeah, it's already booked. But my sister got some good news, right? She's working at it. And that's the thing, when you're really determined, you have to set those goals, right? Goal lists are the best thing that you can do for yourself, especially if you're somebody who procrastinates, right? Somebody who has a hard time in accomplishing the things that they need to get done. I'm one of those people. At the very least, I used to, well, I wouldn't say that this week, right? But for the most part, I have been so good. And it's only because I have those goal lists that I'm getting things checked off. Of course, I'm ending up having to add things to the goal list. But if I've got to add things to the goal list, I have to add things to the goal list, right? Because that's what life is. Things come up unexpectedly all the time, right? Okay. Let's just come down here. Sadly, a lot of the rental systems in this town is a racket with exorbitant rents and what we are described as predatory practices. If we don't have so many students with a lot of money behind them, uh, I get it, right? And a lot of kids too, it's student loans. And when you don't have to cough up that money in the moment, right? It feels like free rent. It feels like, no worries with the bills, right? And so you'll tend to rent a nicer apartment with a higher rent cost, or you have that little bit of extra money that you get from your student loans, and so you spend it on new clothes for school, right? And you don't think about picking up those part-time jobs and stuff. I know here when you're saying predatory practices, in Manitoba, they announced that they are stopping predatory pricing. I don't know what's going on in your cities and where you live, but we have a lot of shoplifters now, especially with the homeless and stuff. Plus, they have to hire extra security in the grocery stores and stuff, so they have to follow behind the homeless people and the down and outs because they're shoplifting for groceries and shoplifting for items that they can resell to other people, and so they've been offsetting the cost of the groceries, right? And it's a lot of the money that they're losing. Like they even use me as a backdrop. It's really kind of awful because I'm doing my grocery shopping with my cart, and somebody is walking behind me and stuffing their bags with groceries and using me to block cameras and to block security guards and stuff. And the last time I went to the grocery store, well, not the last time before that, uh, they were doing that right behind me. I knew they were doing it. I kept looking behind and kind of zigzagging down the aisle because, right, we're paying for the cost of those groceries, right? They're pumping up the cost of the groceries to offset the theft, right? And this woman didn't even realize that the security guard was standing right behind her, watching her do it. She was so focused on me in doing the swerving stuff that she didn't even look behind herself and she was just stuffing it. And then I walked up the next aisle, and the next thing you know, they're hauling her up to the front with the police. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this is the way. But they call it predatory pricing. I don't really think it's predatory pricing because somebody's got to pay for those groceries, right? Otherwise, if the grocery stores are not making a profit, what's the point of staying open, right? So somebody has to pay for those groceries. So I don't know if I could honestly say that it's predatory, right? I call it offsetting. They're offsetting the cost of groceries. But the government says they're putting that to an end. Also, they've been pumping up the prices of the basic foods like milk, eggs, butter. What else? There are a few things on that list that are are regulated by the government, and they said that's it. You guys can't hike those prices up anymore. So if they don't hike those prices up, that means also that the farmers are going to have to get a little bit more money too for the cost of their things, right? Because everybody's got to make money. But yeah, and they're taking one of the taxes. I don't know about you guys, but we pay two taxes. We can't pay provincial sales tax and we pay a government sales tax. So we pay two taxes. It equals to about 14%. A lot of food items like the staples, bread, milk, eggs, crackers, these things are not charged a government sales tax, right? But you'll pay taxes on like potato chips and chocolate bars and pop and stuff that are kind of like luxuries, right? But they're going to get rid of one of the taxes. So that will help out lots too. Also, next month, the government, the main federal government, is giving a rebate for groceries to everybody. So if you have families, you could get $500 or $600 for single people. I already looked into my government account. I'm getting like 200, almost $270 next month. I'll get that deposit into my account, and that will pay all my house bills. I'm super happy. I won't be using it for groceries, but I will be using it to keep my phone and to keep my internet going. So I'm happy with that, right? I don't think the government cares where I put that money to use as long as it keeps me floating. And, I was actually talking a little bit about, how good our governments have been doing, our provincial government and our federal government. You don't see, posts out there, with the general public thanking. I've thought of it a couple of times that I would make a post to thank the government for the little bit of extra help in the recognition that that they're not just using that money for infrastructure and building houses and giving bursaries, and right, that there are incentives to different work related things. And it's really hard because there are a lot of incentives to hire part-time staff, so they give businesses incentives for that. But what happens is, you got a husband with a wife and a few kids at home, he's got to work a few different part-time jobs in order to make a full-time income. So I don't think that's a fair thing to do. I think, there should be equally incentives for full-time positions as much as part-time positions. But I think in all, the Canadian government, at the very least, has been putting standing up to the plate, I think, recognizing, because we are the taxpayers, right? We are the ones that support the government. And in times of difficulties, right? Somebody's got to step to the plate, because if one sector falls, every sector falls, and that's the truth. I don't know. Can you guys tell me how your government's been doing? Have they been sending you guys out any little checks or anything to help you with groceries or pay your bills or anything? I would be interested into knowing that. I know Nancy in Seattle, she was telling me that she had lost some money in her disability payments when the new government switched over. But yeah, it's easy for me to keep track when it comes to the government, especially, I have to watch and make sure I keep an eye on the funds that are coming into my household, because it's important for me to stay on top of things, right? Not to fall, not to fall behind, right? I did that for 20 years and it caused me so much stress. Right? I understood that I was under stress because of the bills and stuff, but a lot of that was my own fault, because I just didn't have the goals. I just didn't have the understanding about making goal list and setting priorities. I have a better idea of it now, and it works out so good for me, right? It works out so well for me. No guarantees that my trip in September is going to happen, but I would have zero chance if I didn't have that goal list. And I've already checked off things in that on that goal list, right? My Tammy had to remind me my computer. I got my computer. That was on my goal list this year. My glasses are $1,000. They weren't $300 glasses for two pairs like my sister got, right? My glasses are almost $1,000. I took almost my entire. Well, I didn't. I got a good income tax return this year, but but uh, but yeah, like I got my glasses done. I got my tent. I got my computer. I got my hikers, but they didn't work out. I took my hikers this week. I walked downtown, and and my feet were hurting by the time I got downtown, and I still had to walk home. And when I walked home, I says, I'm not wearing these. I'm not wearing these ever again. Right? My feet are so important to me. Like, when I talk about my agility and my ability to get out and about, it would be like my sister losing her driver's license and not being able to drive. Like, it'd be like getting my knees, right, my legs cut off at the knees, because I'm such a nature girl, right? I would manage somehow. I would find a way, and I would wheel myself around sometimes. But I just bought a brand new bike. And actually, today was the day that I was supposed to go out and go for a bike ride. But I'm telling you, summer is having a really hard time coming around this year. Usually the snow's gone by March. It's stuck around till the middle of April. Yesterday it snowed for about an hour. It didn't stay, it melted right away. But it actually snowed for about an hour, and I felt all gloomy about it and everything. It was pretty. It was pretty to watch, but it was still very gloomy, especially when I knew today I wanted to go for a bike ride, right? If even just to go get a coffee and go to one of the little libraries and pick up a book or something. I did manage to get to a little library yesterday, and I got a book. I don't know anything about it, but I read the intro. Oh, that's a picture of my dad. It's his obituary card, but it makes for a really good bookmark, and it's also good for me, to look at my dad, right? And I throw my dad a thought all the time. I would say almost every single day. I throw my dad. I throw my dad some good cheer. I really do. But yeah, but I use it as a bookmark for my book. And yeah, so I'll start that one probably tomorrow. I'll start that book. The last book I read it in 2 days. It was so good. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading the book, and I'm trying, right, just to keep the system calm and just, right, just making sure that I'm on top of things, that things don't fall behind. Things fall behind anyway, things pop up. But when you don't have all that other stressful stuff that you haven't been paying attention to, that you let slide because you don't have goal lists, you don't have plans, right? Right. I didn't go for a bike ride today, right? That fell through because it wasn't very warm outside. It was actually quite cold outside. So I said, well, and it's sunny out. It's beautiful. You can still see that the sun is shining through the window, but it was a cold one today. So I didn't go out today, but I did manage to have a nice day. And sometimes we have to trust that these kind of days happen for a reason. I work with what comes across my path, and if it just kind of shuts me down and makes it so that I still have the air conditioner on though. I've been sleeping so good. I don't even, I turned it on a really nice day last week, and it's been plugged in ever since. It's been plugged in ever since. I don't think it kicks in all the time. It just gets down to that nice comfortable temperature, and then when I go to bed, I sleep so good with the air conditioner. Except I have to sleep with socks because I tend to kick the blankets off when I'm sleeping. The air conditioner's right there, so I don't want to get a cold. Um, I start Medicare next month when I turn 65. The premium is being taken from my Social Security, but is smaller amount than I've paid for private health insurance, uh, and you've gotten some discounts. Well, that's some good news, right? So when you turn 65, you get free Medicare or less Medicare because it comes off your Social Security. So your Social Security is like our Canada pension. You just call it something different, right? But yeah, oh, so yeah, because you're the same age as me, Andrew. I keep forgetting that you're the same age as me. But yeah, so that will be good, right? That we have that pension kicking in. I'm assuming 65 is when your pension kicks in. Maybe it's different in the states, but here in Manitoba, you collect your CPP when you hit 63. You can wait until you're 65, but when you're 63, you can collect your CPP, which I did, right? And that's a few $100s every month, right? And that helps. And then when you turn 65, you get your full pension. And then if your full pension doesn't hit the minimum, you can apply for something called guaranteed income, which gives you a minimum base of income every every month. I think here in Canada it's about $1,500 a month guaranteed income. But my pension, I've worked all my life, right? So my pension is pretty close to that. But even if it's $100 or $200, right, less than that, I'm still gonna apply for it because $200, that'll pay the house bills, won't it? Um, Through the health insurance marketplace. Otherwise, I would be paying around $1,000 a month for health insurance. $1,000 a month? Are you kidding me? Wow. That is ridiculous, Andrew. How does anybody do that? Bankruptcy must be so high in the States. $1,000 a month? That's incredible. What about your brother, Andrew? Is his health insurance covered with disability or anything like that? Because I can't imagine you would be paying his health insurance. That's wild. I couldn't even imagine paying 1,000. I couldn't do it. Number one, I'm just not bringing in that money, right? So I couldn't imagine that that single adults have to pay $1,000 for the insurance, and I'm sure if you have a family, it's a lot higher than that. That is something. Wow. I don't get a pension from the government, though I'm eligible for a small amount from Indiana University, very small. We don't have. What? No, don't say that, Andrew. You don't have a government pension, like a senior's pension? Wow. So that must mean almost every single job uh, has a pension attached to it. Then, even if you worked at McDonald's or something, there would have to be some kind of pension attached to it. I would assume, like, seniors can't work their entire lives. They just can't work their entire lives. And what about wives who lose their husbands, right? Because most wives, especially in the 60s, and well, I'm not going to say 60s and 70s. A lot of women worked in the 60s and 70s, but the women in the 50s, they were housewives. They didn't work. Where would the money come in? No pensions? That is, oh my goodness, you guys. Oh my goodness. You should amalgamate and assimilate with Canada, right? Forget about us being the 51st state. Like the states. Oh my goodness, really? Ah, I would just be so scared if I didn't have my pension to fall back on, right? You know, yeah, like I understand, like there are jobs. I've never had one. I could have signed up for a pension plan in some of the positions that I had, but a lot of my positions did not have a pension plan. Like all those waitressing jobs and right bartending jobs, they never had pensions attached to them in any way. And I have like 30 years of hospitality under my belt. That would be so scary for me as a single senior not to have that that pension coming in every single month, right? Oh my goodness. That would be very scary. I'm so sorry for you guys. Like I'm so sorry. I didn't know that there was no pension plan in the States. I don't get it why there isn't. Has nobody, right? Being the example here in Canada with pensions, and there are a lot of countries out there with pensions, you would think that there would have been what do you call that when you want to run for president, candidates. There would have been candidates that would have made it part of their platforms to promise pensions. Wow, that's incredible. I'm in shock in this moment. I didn't know that, Andrew. Thank you for letting me know. Andrew says, I don't know if places like McDonald's have pensions for people who are part-time workers. My friend's coworker didn't have enough insurance after colonoscopy. He had to file for bankruptcy. Oh my goodness, then file for bankruptcy and then still not have a pension. Wow. That is incredible. I don't know how the American public has been able to manage in any way. Like that just doesn't seem feasible because especially when the states is so big, right? So big. Like here in Canada, I have to say, to be honest, we contribute to our Canada pension plans when we work. So the government, it's like when you take unemployment deductions off of your paycheck every month or every payroll. They do the same thing with the Canada pension plan. They take a little bit, but it doesn't add up to much, maybe $20 every paycheck, but you pay into that every month. And then when you hit 65, then your pension kicks in and then you get like a paycheck for the rest of your life, right? Wow. Healthcare in America is obscene disgrace. To use some street talk, it sucks like a vacuum cleaner. Wow. Yeah, this is something incredible, but like I said, are there no candidates that use that as part of their platform when they're fighting to be president? Didn't President Obama fight for health care? Didn't he want to introduce health care to the general public? It seemed to me, when he was running on a platform like that. Yeah, wow. We do have money taken out of Social Security, but Social Security isn't intended to be one's sole support. Ah, yeah, right. I think it's because they want to bring young people into the workforce. If they didn't have um, old age pensions, then you would have old people doing young people work because we just would not be able to retire, would we? And it keeps that circulation going, right? And it makes it, like when somebody retires from their job and they get a watch, right? It's something to look forward to. Yeah, but you have that in the States too. But I guess that's for the rich people who contribute into their pension plans, right? I never had RSPs or anything like that. Those was for people who had lots of money that could just put money away. I know my sister, one of my sister, because she was an executive and she made lots of money that she always contributed into her retirement plans, right? But I never had those jobs that I was able to do that. Right, it even makes me more grateful to be a Canadian. It really makes me feel very grateful for all the things that our government gets right. I'm not saying we get everything right. We get lots of things wrong, but we do get a lot of things right. That's for sure. President Obama was involved with the Affordable Care Act, without which I would have been unable to pay for health insurance. And in the US, you can get a huge fine for not having it. Oh, so it's mandatory. So a lot of people wouldn't have had any health insurance at all. And then they would have just been a strain on the medical system, or they wouldn't have gotten medical help at all and would have just died. Can you imagine if you were really, really, really sick with some disease that's life threatening and then you just have to exist with that because you can't afford? to get the care that you need. Like here in Canada, when we get sick, we just walk into the clinic and ask to see a doctor, right? I don't part with money. When I go to the dentist, there are some things that I have to pay part of the fees for. Like, I have to pay like $25 or something like that if I have to go and get x rays, right? But my dental is pretty much taken care of. Actually, I got my form right here from the government to say that I have to renew my dental plan for this year and that I'm covered 100%, right? But depending on where you go, because I go to right, I've been to the same dentist for 30 years now, and they do such a good job at taking care of my teeth. But they are a high-end dentist, like people who are well to do go to them. I only went to them because at the time I had a good job, and where they were situated in a place that I was there all the time in that mall and stuff anyway. So their fees are a little bit higher for their services. So I pay a slight fee, just slight though, because the last time I went to the dentist, well, that was on my goal list, wasn't it? Right? I forgot I got the dental work done. I dished out. Well, I didn't dish out very much. I would have if I didn't have my dental plan, but it was like $2,000 worth of dental work that I had done. And I think in total, I only paid about $200 of that. And my dental plan covered the rest of it. And I think if I had gone to like a less, what do you call that, high end dentistry, um, I probably wouldn't have had to pay anything, right? Probably wouldn't have had to pay anything. The government would have covered it all, right? Wow. Uh, the late Senator Ted Kennedy once said that in America you can get the health care you need if you're really rich or really poor. Wow. Wow. Jane Fonda is very controversial, but she had a good point when she said back in a 1980 interview, this is a great country, but you better not get sick in it. Uh, right? If it wasn't so sad, it would be laughable, right? It's almost like telling a joke, and she, right? But it was, what do you call those? A backhanded joke. Is that what you call it? Black comedy, right? Like something very serious but laughable. Wow. Tammy says many people now in the United States are in the 70s and 80s and are still working. There are more people now in Trump's presidency who are working longer hours. I know two people in their 80s working. Wow, that's kind of crazy. I've only known one person to work in their 80s. I worked in a retail lumber store probably about 20 years ago. I worked there, and he was 85 years old, and he owned this lumber store, great big huge retail lumber store. And when he sold it, uh, because he had a few of the stores, they they lots of people wanted to come in and buy them out, right? And he wanted to sell it as a franchise. He wanted to sell it as a franchise because that's how he set it up, and he was very proud of it because he had started it in the 30s or 40s, right? And this was the early 2000, maybe 2005 or so. And he when he retired, none of his kids wanted the business, right? And he was semi-retired by then. He was still popping in and stuff, but his kids were kind of managing it. They weren't managing it very well, right? And so he decided to sell it, and his only wish was that all the staff would be able to keep their jobs. So he wanted to sell it to a company that would keep all the employees and they could have keep their jobs. And they sold it to this company in that promise, and they kept the kind of promise, but they made all the staff very uncomfortable, and they pressured all the staff, all the full-time staff, because remember what I said, the incentives for part-time employees, they were very high. So in order to get those incentives, they wanted everybody who worked there to be part-time. And so all us full-timers were kind of squeezed out, and that was literally made us feel so uncomfortable that we couldn't stay. And I was not nice about it, to tell you the truth. I held the law against them. I held the government against them. I held Better Business Bureau against them. I lasted, well, they got rid of almost everybody, even the assistant manager. They even got rid of him. I and he was a badass, that guy. Like, you don't mess with him. He knew his job so well. But yeah, they because they paid him so much money. It was cheaper to bring in somebody as a supervisor rather than have an assistant manager, right? Because there were all kinds of general managers and higher ups with that company. It was a big company that took them out. I won't say who they were because, right, that's it's not nice, and you don't want to say bad things about these companies. But yeah, they got rid of everybody, and in the end, there were three of us left. The very best employee who ran receiving, and he was a maniac. He was so good. He was the only one who could do that job, right? Receiving, getting the orders ready for all the constructions and all the building supplies and everything so that they were ready for pickup every morning. He was the only one who could manage that, right? With his crew and get that all done. He was amazing. He managed to hold on to his job for a little while, but they wanted him gone too. And they finally squeezed him out of receiving as the receiving manager, and they put him on the floor as a floater by working different apartments and cleaning shelves and stuff. It was so disheartening for him. In the end, the whole receiving section just fell apart without him, that it only managed for about 2 months, and then they took him. They asked him to come back, and they kind of humbled themselves and asked him to take over the position again as the receiving manager, which he did, right? Because it was very demeaning for him to come out on the floor, but he did it out of necessity. For myself, I cross trained in every position. So they called me the little drummer girl, right? I had no idea about plumbing, but I learned it. Electrical, I knew nothing about electrical, but I learned the stock and I read books. I did the paint department. I did the custom bathrooms. I was the salesperson in doing custom bathrooms. And I worked the sales desk, and I wasn't very good at it. I did my best, but that was extremely frustrating because you're dealing with really angry contractors who waiting for their orders or the measurements didn't get done right. So a lot of it I was using my customer service skills and keeping people happy who were angry. But I was only able to hold on to my position because I cross trained. So they could keep letting people go and cutting part times like crazy because they knew Cindy could do it. And I was running around like a chicken with my head chopped off, trying to do everything And I was magnificent in some aspects, but I was mediocre. Like I said, I didn't know anything about plumbing or electrical, but I learned the stock. I read books, and in talking to contractors who helped me along, my customers giving me advice, right? Nobody wanted to help me there. They all wanted me gone. But I was determined. I was right. I wasn't going to go without a fight. That was before I, right. If I'd known what I'd known now, I would have taken them to the Better Business Bureau. I would have. I would have just given my notice, and I would have taken them to the Better Business Bureau. But I didn't do that. I just became a pain in the butt for them, right? I just became that thorn. I came in. I'd come in to work, and they would have posters on the wall all about what was it, attitude, and they did it because they knew it would get me infuriated. And then they would come and they would give me heck about other people's jobs, right? And make me responsible when I wasn't even a supervisor. And they try and make me feel right, like to dig me so that I would have breakdowns, or I would get furious. And I controlled myself really well because I needed my job. I right. I and there were parts of that job too that I loved because again it was customer service, right? And I had made friends with the regulars, and the whole neighborhood loved me, and right. So there were aspects of my job that I really loved, but right, the higher ups didn't want me there. And like I said, I became a thorn. Like they were determined to get me part time at the very least, and I was going to let them do it. And then they really pinned me one day. They really pinned me, and I lost it. Right, I just went into the lunchroom and I just put my head on the lunchroom table and I bawled my eyes out. And they said, "Get back on the floor and get back to work." And I went, "I'm going home." I'm going home. I came back the next day, and they put me on 3 days probation or something, thinking that I was just going to quit. That I was so humiliated I was going to quit. But no, I covered my bases. I called Better Business Bureau. I called the unemployment office. I told them what was going on. Like clearly, I'd written letters to management prior to this, so there was all kinds of records. I really stuck it to them. Like I used every legal avenue that I had to keep that job that I didn't even like anymore, right? That it was so stressful for me. Like it was super, but it was like lots of things. Like I said, the customers loved me. There were some of those jobs that I had really enjoyed. Like I enjoyed working the paint department, and I enjoyed the other staff that went down to part time. They gave up and said, "Okay, I'll go part time." Right? I wasn't giving up my part time. Forget that. Legally, they couldn't make me take part time, but they could make my life so uncomfortable that I would. And then when they had that opportunity to put me on 3 day probation, they called it. They they wrote me up, and they used that write up as something against me. So all they had to do was find one more thing, and they would have me. And so after my 3 day probation, I came back into work, and you should have seen the management's faces. They were so shocked that I came into work like nothing had happened, with a big smile on my face, right? Of course, it was plastered on my face, right? But I was kind of smiling on the inside because I could tell they were in absolute shock because they thought they had done this with me, right? And then I worked for 2 days, and I'm sure that they were having staff meetings like, how do we get rid of her? How do we get rid of her? And then at the end of it, they just called my name. I went into the office, and they had another person there. He says, "Cindy, we're letting you go, and we're not giving you a reference." And I just smiled at them, right? I smiled at them and I got up and they go, "We're not done with you." And I says, "Well, you just said you were letting me go. We're done." And I walked out. And because I already had all that conversations and everything with the Better Business Bureau and with the unemployment office and all that stuff, that I had everything marked to the T, that I was able to uh, get my what do you call that, unemployment checks, EI checks, right, for that. But I got another job right away. And it was a good job too, but I had to drive out of the city every day. It was in a restaurant out in the countryside, just outside the city. But I loved the job, right? I loved waitressing there too. I didn't stay there for very long because, right, it wasn't a very busy restaurant, and I wasn't making enough tip money to even pay my gas. So all I was making was my paychecks, and it wasn't enough for me to live on, especially when I was used to making good money, right? So then that was the beginning of me, right, going through jobs and not being able to get jobs because, right, I never had an experience like that where my manager was actually trying to get rid of me, because I always prided myself in being the best of the best, right? And I even knew when I left there that that company was going to fail pretty hard, and they did. Oh my goodness, everybody ended up, when I went back for a visit, I didn't go back to that store for like a year or something. Then I needed a can of paint or something, so I went into the store. Everybody was different, all the management was different, all the staff was different, and it was like a skeleton crew. It was like two people with no security or anything. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like they're really having a hard time now, right? So I did get out, I think, at a good time. But if I had to do it over again, knowing what stress I had been put under, because they really put us all up against the wall because they really didn't want any full timers. And it was kind of a sneaky thing to do with that gentleman. He was 85 years old, and all he was wanting to do was to make sure that his staff was okay, that they all had their jobs, right? But this company was super sneaky, and they really took the staff for a ride. Everybody ended up leaving, right, of their own accord or theirs, right? But yeah, that, right, people are sneaky that way. But it's my fault too, because if I had known what I know now, if I was the person that I am now, I wouldn't have lasted, right? I would have taken my reference and I would have just gotten another job, right? A job where I would have been appreciated. They didn't know who I was. They were a new company. They were just taking out heads, right? They didn't even try to get to know me or anything. But in the end, they didn't have much choice because I was doing everybody's job, right? Everybody's job. Okay, let's come into the comments here. Um, oh my goodness, you guys are yapping. Uh, okay. Very sad and maddening and heartbreaking, all this health care going on, and many of us are living in it. Hard times. Yeah, I can't imagine how a country can run. They must be running on tariffs, right? They're managing to get by just on tariffs. Because you always hear those jokes too, that the rich people are the only ones who don't have to pay taxes because there's so many deductions and everything going on. And you guys really need that tax money. I think here in Canada, if you, right, you we do have deductions, good deductions for people who make jobs and build infrastructure and stuff. But at the same time, if you're a company and you're making money, you have to pay taxes. I hear you, Tammy. Living in an expensive college town, there are people working here but can't afford to live here. Those who keep the town running must be able to live in it and be close to work, right? And also, you talk a lot, Andrew, about the slow times and the busy times because it's seasonal where the kids are there and the Christmas season and Easter and all that stuff, spring break, and people kind of disappear. And then the businesses suffer in that too, right? Because they depend on those incomes, yeah, coming into their businesses. Many businesses want as few full time people as possible, so management doesn't have to give people benefits. And you're right. And I think that's what happened. And plus, like here in Canada, right, businesses get incentives to make sure that their employees are part time. But that's hard. I couldn't do two part time jobs. You got to think of the travel time in between those positions. And what if one job is a day shift and the other shift is like a night shift? Right? Like your sleeping habits would be really messed up, and your stress levels and your time that you're able to spend with your family would be all broken up. Like that's got to be hard. Indiana University rifts people, reduction in force reduction in force. I know someone who arrived at her job at 23 years and was told it was her last day. Next day, someone started the job, but at less pay. Yeah, that's what they do. That's right. But if you had the pension plan, Andrew, in the States, then that's something for the retirees to look forward. And then you could have that rotation of new faces and new strengths coming into the businesses, right? I think it benefits the country very well. And it also helps within the family because when the parents, right, retire, they get to be the caregivers and the babysitters for their children's children. So it makes it so that the grandparents are happy because they get to spend time at home and spend time with their grandkids. It takes off some of the pressure of the parents because the parents aren't dishing money out for daycare, right? That they can go off and they can both work and bring in a good income, like a two income house, right? And so I think it's actually a good thing that, and also the government benefits because you got two people going to work, bringing in good incomes. They're not subsidizing the daycares because the grandparents are taking care of the grandkids. And so they're able to make more money in taxes because the household has a higher income, right? Yeah, there are lots of good things about having pensions for seniors, but especially so that seniors don't go under. Like it would be really, really sad if the large majority of the homeless were senior citizens because they don't have any income at all. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that would be something. Um, I think it's like that everywhere's Andrew. Times are worse than ever before. The economy is in the pot. High everything. Yeah, here in Canada, the gas is almost at $1.70 a liter. And if you look at it, there's 4 liters in a gallon, right? That's almost $8 a gallon for gas right now. Hopefully they get that mess in the Middle East all sorted out soon. And like if we can, right, and I know a lot of people have a Trump issue, but if we can send Trump some good wishes because I heard his health isn't doing very well right now because we have to clean up this mess in the Middle East right now. And because he started it, it doesn't make sense because we're going to have more troubles if it's not sorted, right? When he's so ill, because it'll be taken advantage of, and then somebody else will have to come into place that didn't have his balls to do that, right? And so, I'm sending some Trump some good cheer that, that his health can manage all already, that if we can, you know even if we're not happy with him being in office, right, the ball is rolling. So, right, that we should support him in a way. And I'm not even an American, but even I could see, right, that all that stress, that he's not getting help even from other countries, right, that other countries need to step in now and support what he's doing. And whether it was a good move or a bad move, I think it's gone too far now. It doesn't matter where the blame lays in that. Something's got to be done about it now. So yeah, I'm sending him out some good cheer, just at the very least, right? I understand sometimes you got to make a mess to clean a mess, but now if his health goes, we're really going to be in a big mess. So yeah, sending him some good cheer. And those scenarios are going on everywhere. So I've seen that happen in Texas and Michigan. No one's job is secure, right? It's like when they shut down Ford. Was it the Ford? The car companies in Detroit. Remember what happened to Detroit? Detroit is starting to come back a little bit now, but not as a wealthy city, just as an opportunity, because, right, getting these abandoned houses and little pieces of property are very, very inexpensive, and there's incentives in getting these places and renovating them, right, restoring them and living in them. But yeah, right, when you take away the jobs, when you take an opportunity to bring in income into a state or a province, you take that away, then you end up with ghost towns, right? And then when you end up with the ghost towns, what happens is the kids move away. They move away to different cities, and then they're paying the high prices, and they're not. They have to pay for the daycare, and right, and the governments aren't making as much money. So, it's like a snowball going down a hill, right? Uh, One lady who had to work 25 years in the department office of the IU History Department got a new house through Habitat for Humanity because she earned so little. Yeah. That was, oh, what was that president's name with the blonde hair? Starts with a C. Andrew, help me. President Carter, that was him. That was his baby, right? Habitat for Humanity. We have Habitat for Humanity here in Canada too. In Manitoba, I think they try and do at least 10 houses every year, and then they just give the houses to a low income family, right? And the house is theirs if they can stay in the house and make their minimum payments on that, and they're very low payments, right? Basically utilities, paying for the utilities. But if they can manage the upkeep on the house, it's theirs. I think after 5 or 10 years, it's like 100% theirs, right? And I think even they can sell it after that. And wow, you can make a little bit of money on housing, right? And housing goes up so high so fast. I know my sister's house, she bought it for like $160,000, and then like 5 or 6 years later she sold it for almost $700,000. It was like such a huge profit, like that much money. You can retire on that if you just, right, spend $1,000 a month or something. Like you could easily retire on that. Um, I have a friend. I have a friend who was treated horribly at her job. I'm sure it was because she was full time and the manager wanted her to make her miserable so she would quit. Yeah, see, it's kind of what happened at my last job, right? Is the manager uh, didn't want me there, but again, I loved my job. Right. This is a recent lesson that I learned, right? There was a lot of stress involved, and I stayed there because I had built up that community, and there were a lot of aspects about that job that I absolutely loved. I actually considered it one of my favorite jobs, and it wasn't the higher ups. It was just a manager that didn't like me, right? And it was nothing that I did, right? I was just too efficient in my job. That's the problem, right? Because again, I was always feeling like that's what empaths do. They always think they're going to get into trouble for something, so they work so hard, right? I never even missed a day of work in the 5 or 6 years that I was working there. Never missed one day of work. And there were people who missed a couple of days of work every week. And I never did that. And, I built up that community. I took great pride in my job. But I could understand, when the customers would come in and she'd be wandering up and down the aisles doing her thing, and they would come up to her and go, "Oh, is the manager in? The lady with the pink bangs." And if I was at work and I heard the customer do that, I would just cringe because I knew it drove her crazy. But I didn't have any say over the customers. I couldn't, right? And lots of times I found myself, kind of blowing smoke up her bum bum, making her feel good, right? Because I knew it hit her in her the way she felt about herself. Like I knew it did, right? So I would always try and make her feel good. And I would, in front of the customers, I would always refer to her as my boss and let me ask my boss, or, oh, my boss makes that decision. I did a lot of that. Like I did a lot of that. But I understand that sometimes that can be smothering too. I didn't know it at the time, right? I just thought that I was giving her credit for stuff, but she probably took it as like I was being demeaning to her or something. But she didn't want me there, and she made my life so miserable. She would say things to the other staff, and I'm sure she was saying things to the big bosses out there. She was giving credit for my work to people who were just awful at their job, but because she didn't want me there, that she just didn't care. Whatever it took, she was going to get rid of me. And I only took it as long as I could, but I knew ahead of time that I was going to leave. So I just kind of did the same thing that I did at that lumber place, and I just started building up whatever evidence that I could get. But she was really good. She was really sneaky about how she went about it, right? Like, right? And in the end, I talked to the big bosses about it. They talked to her, and right, she was nice to me for like 24 hours, and then she just went back to her old ways. And I just said, I just can't do this anymore. By that time, I had a little bit of mindset lessons under my belt. I had quite a bit, but again, I loved that job. I held on to it because I loved that job. I felt that job needed me. And I was so proud of where we had gotten in that company, that I right, I just loved that job, and I wasn't going to let it go. And of course, such great scores, like all these beautiful things that I got because of that job that I had. And I was determined to stay for as long as I could, right? And I managed to stay for almost 2 years in actuality. But she got in an altercation with a homeless person, and she ended up in a body cast for a year, and she got like a year's vacation out of that. Yeah, so I stayed on, and it was pretty decent because she wasn't around to cause me any problems, right? She wasn't involved in the company at all while she was on her sick leave. So I managed. But when she came back, right, it got rough again. It got really rough again. But I held on for as long as I could. I think I held on for another year before I called it quits, right? And I knew it was my time, right? I knew it was my time, and I learned a lot working there, right? And I've been managing to put a roof over my head, right? Because of everything that I learned about antiques and collectibles. And I've gotten so many great scores at that job that I didn't even know was valuable at the time. I just bought them because I loved them. Like these two pictures here, right? They're worth $1,500. I paid $12.50 for both of them. And I probably got a little staff discount on top of it, right? The frames were pretty grungy. They were all covered in yellow cigarette smoke, right? But when I did the research on them, they're very famous artists. And these prints here, because they're so large, like they're like 3 feet. You can't tell how big they are, but they're like 3 feet, and and they were worth like $1,500. Like when I hit the RV, like I've been looking at RVs, like lots of RVs, and but the RVs don't have space for these two big pictures, and I need to take them with me, and I need to take that one too. The one, my forest picture, I need to take that too. Everything else can go, right? There are a few things that I want to keep, but a few things can go. Okay, let's come down on these comments really quickly. I know I kind of went over tonight. Um, but held on till retirement. No part time people replaced her, no one at all. So the place continues to be understaffed and doing a poor job. That's usually what happens, right? That's usually what happens. Um, you was a special ed teacher in high school, and some teachers tried to get rid of me. It didn't work. I stayed. They gave me a hard time, but they couldn't move me. Yeah, sometimes in our own stubbornness, right? Like, right? Try and take my job away from me. This is the attitude that I had, and if you do it right, you should be able to have it recognized that you didn't deserve that kind of treatment. But, there are a lot of government agencies that are supposed to take care of you, but they don't. They look at your physicality, but they don't take a look at your emotional and mental well-being. And sometimes, when you're in a place where you're not wanted, it's very stressful, it's very sad, it makes you miserable, makes you to not want to be there, right? And lots of times in that disillusionment, you do become bad at your job. Oh, I don't feel like going to work today, right? They are not nice people. I don't care. I'm not going into work today. And then you do that a few times, and then they use that as an excuse to get rid of you, right? Yeah. Um, Good for you, Tammy. Students needed you. My late brother had Down syndrome, so I had familiarity with special education. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, Tammy. Some teachers hated me and some were jealous of me, and they were special ed teachers too. We all worked in the same department. My special ed department head didn't like me either. Jealousy and resentment, right? Jealousy and resentment, that's like poison, right? They see your light, they see your strengths, they see what you bring to the table, and they don't want to keep up with you, right? They want things nice and easy. They want the couch, the remote control kind of job. But, right, here you are doing a good job showing them up. Of course, they're going to be jealous and resentful in that. Uh, that's true. The rich don't pay out. The middle class and some poor people do too pay taxes. I do pray for President Donald Trump. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that somebody sticks up for the guy, right? He does need some help. Yeah, President Jimmy Carter, he's the one who started that Habitat for Humanity. He actually did do some of the building and stuff too. He would go to the work sites and do the building of these places. I donate to the Habitat for Humanity. It is a big here in Michigan too. They went to a witch voodoo doctor 3 times and used the doll and needles and tried to harm me and everything. I prayed and fasted, and God kept you alive. Are you kidding me? They actually do that kind of stuff. That is people. It takes all kinds to make the world. Got to try a little bit harder to get along with each other like we do on Sunday nights. I have the best crew ever. Okay, you guys, I'm really sorry that I kept you late tonight. I try to always make sure my live is ready to shut down for the night at 9 o'clock. Um, I will be back tomorrow for What's My Good Cheer. I don't know what the topic of discussion is going to be, but tomorrow, if it's a nice day, I looked at the weather channel. It says it's going to be cold again tomorrow. But next week, the nice weather is really supposed to hit hard. And so, yeah, for sure. I don't know when I'm going for my first bike ride. I'm ready for it. I look at it every day. Like I said, today was supposed to be bike riding day, but it was a little chilly outside, but I did manage to get my little metal plant table painted and shellacked, and it's all ready to go for them to put their gardens out on the deck. So that made me happy to get that done too. Okay, you guys, that's it for tonight. I'll see you next Sunday. Owen, Andrew, Tammy, who else showed up in here tonight? Gonna come back here just to see everybody who's in the background watching. For those of you pop in later to see what we're up to. Eugene was in tonight. Everybody, have a great night. Talk to you later.